The morning air in Geneva was crisp, carrying a faint scent of dew and pine from the nearby Alps. Ambassador Marcus Hall stood on the balcony of the United Earth Council's headquarters, the cold biting through his tailored suit. Below, the city hummed with subdued activity, unaware of the monumental events that would soon shake their fragile peace. The sky above seemed impossibly vast, a canvas of soft pastels stretching over the jagged peaks. Hall's sharp, dark eyes scanned the horizon, though his mind was far from the tranquil scene before him. He clutched the letter of summons in his hand, the alien symbols etched into its surface pulsating faintly, like the slow, deliberate heartbeat of a predator. "Marcus," a voice interrupted his thoughts. Hall turned to see General Aidan Carrick approaching, his boots clicking against the polished floor with military precision. Carrick's graying buzz cut and weathered face bore the marks of decades in service, his presence as solid and unyielding as a mountain. "Is it sinking in yet?" Carrick asked, his gravelly voice tinged with irony. 50 years of silence," Marcus replied, his voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of tension. "And now they summon us like errant children." Carrick folded his arms, the faint aroma of cigar smoke clinging to his uniform. "We've prepared for this moment, Marcus, but it's your stage. Make them believe Earth is nothing more than what we've shown them. Manageable, predictable." Marcus nodded, his expression unyielding. Yet beneath the facade of calm, a storm churned. He could feel the weight of Earth's future pressing against his chest, the burden as palpable as the chill in the air. Inside the chamber, the leaders of the United Earth Council gathered. The room buzzed with low conversations, a murmur of unease that echoed against the high-vaulted ceiling. Holographic projections of Earth's continents shimmered in the center, a digital map of humanity's precarious existence. Dr. Liana Navarro, the Council's chief scientific strategist, stood by the projection table, her eyes scanning lines of data with laser focus. Her sleek auburn hair was tied back in a no-nonsense bun, her voice calm yet commanding as she addressed the room. "We've analyzed their message," she began, her voice cutting through the murmur like a scalpel. "The Galactic Council's language implies urgency, but their tone carries an air of condescension. They don't see us as equals. They see us as a potential liability." Carrick snorted, his disdain sharp enough to cut steel. "Typical. They think they're the adults in the room." "And we're the children with firecrackers," Marcus added dryly. The room chuckled faintly, the tension momentarily softened. "Let's not forget why they're calling us now," Navarro continued, her fingers dancing over the projection controls. The hologram shifted to display a fleet of alien vessels, sleek and ominous against the backdrop of space. "Our monitoring stations have detected an uptick in their fleet activity near the Council's core systems. Whatever their true motive is, it's tied to their military movements." Marcus leaned forward, his gaze piercing. "And we have no intention of showing our cards first. They'll see what we want them to see, nothing more." The plan was already in motion, decades in the making. Humanity's real advancements, quantum manipulation, stealth technology, gravitational weaponry, were buried deep beneath the surface. Beneath the Pacific Ocean, in the shadow of the Mariana Trench, entire fleets lay cloaked in quantum shadows. On Mars, vast military installations remained hidden beneath the red dust. "They're coming for our compliance," Marcus said, his voice gaining a steel edge. "But compliance isn't on the menu." The Council nodded, the weight of their unspoken resolve filling the room. 2 hours later, Marcus stood on the tarmac of a secure Geneva airstrip, his breath visible in the cold air. The alien transport ship descended like a shard of liquid metal, its surface rippling with unnatural hues that defied comprehension. The hum of its engines resonated in his chest, a sound that seemed to vibrate on a molecular level. The ship touched down with an eerie silence, its landing too smooth to be natural. A hatch opened, and 2 alien figures emerged, their movements fluid and unsettling. Marcus took a deep breath, the metallic tang of the ship's presence mingling with the crisp scent of the air. He stepped forward, his every movement calculated, deliberate. "Ambassador Marcus Hall of Earth," the taller alien intoned, its voice distorted by a translator device. Its features were humanoid but unnervingly symmetrical, its iridescent skin shimmering like oil on water. "Welcome," Marcus replied, his tone measured, the faintest hint of a smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. The alien's expressionless face gave nothing away, but its tone carried the faintest undercurrent of disdain. "We are honored to escort you to the Galactic Council. Follow us." Marcus glanced back briefly at Carrick and Navarro, who watched from a distance. Carrick gave him a curt nod, his jaw set like granite. As Marcus ascended the ramp into the ship, a faint hum enveloped him, a vibration that seemed to seep into his bones. The interior was sleek and featureless, the walls shimmering with an unearthly light. The journey through fold space was disorienting, the universe twisting and folding outside the ship's viewports. Marcus focused on his data tablet, reviewing Earth's official records, carefully curated to project an image of technological mediocrity. The aliens spoke softly among themselves in their melodic language, casting occasional glances in Marcus's direction. He pretended not to notice, though he silently catalogued every detail: their posture, the inflections in their speech, the subtle gestures that hinted at their hierarchy. "Impressive, isn't it?" the shorter alien said suddenly, breaking the silence. Marcus looked up, feigning curiosity. "It's certainly different from anything we've seen." The alien's lips curled into what could only be described as a smirk. "You humans are full of surprises, but the galaxy is vast. There is much you have yet to comprehend." Marcus inclined his head, letting the comment pass. He knew the value of being underestimated. As the ship neared the Galactic Council station, the structure loomed into view, a colossal crystalline flower floating in the void, its petals glinting with refracted starlight. Smaller vessels buzzed around it like bees, their designs as varied as the species they carried. Marcus allowed himself a moment of awe, his eyes scanning the station with a mixture of admiration and calculation. Beneath its beauty, he noted the lack of overt defensive structures, a telling detail about the Council's overconfidence. The ship docked smoothly, and Marcus stepped onto the station's polished floor, the faint scent of ozone filling the air. He was led through gleaming corridors, the walls alive with flowing patterns of light. As the doors to the council chamber opened, the weight of 100 alien gazes fell upon him. The amphitheater was vast, its tiers filled with beings of every imaginable form, some humanoid, others so alien they defied comprehension. Marcus squared his shoulders, his footsteps echoing in the charged silence. Every movement, every glance, every breath was deliberate. This was the beginning of the game, and Marcus Hall intended to win. The air inside the Galactic Council chamber was thick, a heady mix of alien pheromones, electric hums, and the faint metallic tang of unknown atmospheres. The sound of Marcus Hall's footsteps echoed in the cavernous amphitheater, each step deliberate, steady, and sharp against the polished floor. Around him, the tiers of the chamber rose like the ridges of a colossal hive, each seat occupied by representatives of a species more bizarre than the last. The silence was deafening. Eyes, some human-like, others compound or glowing or completely void of emotion, fixed on him with predatory interest. The weight of their collective scrutiny pressed against Marcus like an invisible tide, but he stood firm, his posture unyielding, his expression calm. At the far end of the chamber, perched on a dais that shimmered with soft, pulsating light, sat Chancellor Nyros, the council's imposing leader. His iridescent skin shifted subtly, the patterns moving like clouds over an alien sunrise, a visual language that Marcus couldn't yet decipher but suspected spoke volumes. The Chancellor rose with a fluidity that was unsettling, his height exaggerated by the slender curves of his elongated limbs. His voice, amplified by the chamber's acoustics, resonated with a melodic authority. "Ambassador Marcus Hall of Earth," Nyros intoned, each syllable carrying a faint hum as if vibrating through the air itself. "We welcome you to the Galactic Council, though your arrival has been long overdue." The words held the razor-sharp edge of a blade wrapped in silk. Marcus allowed himself a small smile, a gesture of careful diplomacy. Chancellor Neros, esteemed representatives, it is an honor to stand before you today on behalf of Earth. We come with humility and hope for collaboration. There was a faint ripple of amusement among the council members, barely audible clicks, whispers, and guttural hums passing between them. They saw his words as submission, a confirmation of their belief that humanity was no more than a fledgling species, unfit for the galactic stage. Marcus didn't miss it, but he played his role, his demeanor radiating deference while his mind churned with the precision of a war strategist. Humility and hope, Neros repeated, his tone faintly mocking. He gestured, and the walls around the chamber flickered to life, massive screens materializing out of thin air. Before we proceed, let us remind ourselves of the species standing before us. The screens erupted into motion, displaying images from Earth's history, scenes of warfare, conflict, and destruction, mushroom clouds rising like monstrous blooms, tanks grinding through ravaged cities, fleets of jets streaking across the sky. The sound of artillery fire and anguished cries filled the chamber, a cacophony of Earth's darkest moments. "This is your legacy," Neros said, his voice cutting through the din. 50 years we have observed your kind. 50 years of bloodshed, of wasteful conflict, of technological advancement aimed not at prosperity but destruction. You are a species driven by violence, incapable of restraint. Marcus kept his expression carefully neutral, though the images clawed at his psyche. He could feel the weight of history pressing against him, the billions of lives lost, the atrocities committed in humanity's relentless march forward. But he also felt the spark of defiance, the understanding that these images, as damning as they appeared, were only part of the story. "We acknowledge the shadows of our past," Marcus said, his voice steady but resonant, cutting through the murmurs in the chamber. "But every shadow exists because there is also light. Our conflicts have shaped us, yes, but they have also taught us. From struggle comes growth, from hardship, resilience." He stopped himself, instinctively avoiding the word. He recalibrated. From hardship, innovation. The crystalline representative from the fourth tier, its body refracting light in fractured rainbows, leaned forward. Its voice emerged in chimes and harmonics, translated into a sharp monotone. "Innovation directed at weapons. Your kind spends more resources on warfare than some species spend on their entire civilizations." "We direct resources toward survival," Marcus countered, his tone hardening, "because history has shown us that peace cannot be maintained without the means to protect it." Neros raised a hand, silencing the growing hum of discontent. "Enough posturing. Let us move to the heart of the matter." The chamber's lights dimmed and the screen shifted, displaying schematics and data streams. "The Council has deliberated and reached a conclusion. Humanity, in its current form, represents a destabilizing force in this galaxy. Your violent tendencies, your unchecked growth, cannot be allowed to threaten our collective peace." Marcus felt his stomach tighten, though his face remained impassive. This was what they had expected. "As such," Neros continued, his iridescent patterns shifting into hues of finality, "we hereby demand that Earth disarm 90% of its military forces and submit to the Council's oversight. You will be monitored, guided, and, when necessary, corrected. This is not a request, Ambassador. It is the only path forward." The chamber erupted into approving murmurs, alien voices rising in a chorus of agreement. Marcus stood still, letting the noise wash over him like a wave against rock. He waited, his silence drawing their attention back to him, the tension thickening with each passing moment. "And if we refuse?" he asked, his voice soft but laced with steel. Neros' patterns flared, the shimmering light around him intensifying. "Then the consequences will be swift, sanctions that will reduce your world to a pre-industrial state. We possess the technology to enforce this." For the first time, Marcus allowed himself a small, calculated smile. "Sanctions, Chancellor, or destruction?" The chamber fell silent, the weight of his words hanging in the air like a storm about to break. Neros' gaze sharpened, his body language shifting slightly. It was subtle, but Marcus saw it. The first crack in the Chancellor's veneer. "I will need to confer with my government," Marcus said, his tone measured. "This is no small decision, and it is not mine to make unilaterally. May I request a recess?" Neros hesitated, then waved a dismissive hand. "You have 1 hour. Use it wisely." Marcus inclined his head and turned, walking steadily out of the chamber. His every step was a controlled performance, exuding calm while his mind raced ahead. Back in the quarters assigned to him, Marcus activated the secure quantum link embedded in his collar. The holographic form of General Carrick materialized before him, his face lined with grim determination. "They took the bait," Marcus said, his voice low. "Exactly as predicted." Carrick nodded. "We're ready to proceed. Guardian fleet is in position and Admiral Danvers reports full operational readiness. Phase 1 is a go." "Good," Marcus said, his expression hardening. "They think they've cornered us. Let's show them what it means to underestimate Earth." As the quantum link faded, Marcus glanced out the viewport of his quarters. The station floated against the vastness of space, its crystalline spires gleaming like a fragile jewel. But he knew better. Fragility was an illusion, one Earth had learned to weaponize. The trap was set. Now all that remained was to spring it. The silence in Marcus Hall's quarters was deceptive, the kind of quiet that carried the weight of a gathering storm. He stood by the wide viewport, watching the expanse of space as stars shimmered faintly in the void. The Galactic Council station hung in the distance, its crystalline spires reflecting light like a fractured diamond, its beauty masking the arrogance of those within. His fingers brushed the edge of the small transmitter embedded in his collar. A faint vibration rippled against his skin, followed by the low hum of activation. "General Carrick," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper, "proceed with Phase 1. Carrick's voice responded immediately, cold and efficient. "Acknowledged. Fleet is advancing to position. The Council won't see it coming." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, steadying his breath. The scent of ozone from the station's artificial atmosphere lingered faintly in the air, mixing with the sterile tang of the chamber. His pulse thrummed with anticipation. Outwardly he had maintained a mask of calm diplomacy, but now the true weight of Earth's preparations pressed against him. Every decision, every gamble, led to this moment. The faint chime of the door interrupted his thoughts. He turned as 2 of the Council's sentries entered, tall, sinewy creatures with taut blue skin and crystalline eyes. Their presence was a reminder of the Council's scrutiny. Marcus forced a neutral expression, gesturing for them to lead the way. The corridors leading to the chamber pulsed faintly with light, the walls alive with shifting patterns. Marcus's shoes struck the floor with deliberate precision, his steps slow and measured. His senses stayed alert, noting every detail, the faint hum of energy resonating through the station, the cold metallic taste of recycled air, the flicker of alien figures in his peripheral vision. Everything carried a sense of impending collision, a fuse slowly burning toward its inevitable end. The chamber doors slid open, and the tension inside hit Marcus like a physical force. The murmurs of the counselors were louder now, agitated, their once dismissive gazes tinged with unease. Even Chancellor Nyros, perched on his shimmering dais, appeared more rigid, his iridescent patterns flickering erratically. Marcus took his place at the central podium, his gaze steady, his voice calm but resonant. "Chancellor, members of the Council, I've communicated your terms to Earth's leadership. The response is complicated." Neros leaned forward, his elongated frame casting an angular shadow across the chamber floor. "Complicated, Ambassador Hall, is not an acceptable answer. The Council demands compliance." Before Marcus could respond, a faint tremor passed through the station, so subtle it was barely noticeable. But Marcus saw it. The crystalline counselor on the 4th tier stiffened, its refracted colors dimming momentarily. Whispers spread among the counselors, their voices rising in a discordant hum. "What is this disturbance?" Nyros demanded, his tone sharp. His shimmering patterns deepened into shades of warning. Marcus's face remained impassive, though inside his adrenaline spiked. He had anticipated the Council's reaction, but knew they were unprepared for what was coming next. "I'm sure it's nothing," Marcus said, his voice measured. "Perhaps a minor fluctuation in your station's systems?" The tremor came again, this time stronger, accompanied by a low rumble that reverberated through the chamber. Nairos's gaze narrowed, his translucent fingers twitching as he gestured to a nearby technician. "Report!" the Chancellor barked. The technician, a small, amphibian-like being, tapped furiously at a glowing console. Its bulbous eyes widened as streams of data scrolled across the display. "Chancellor, we're detecting anomalies near the station's perimeter. Unknown signatures. The technician's words were drowned out as a deafening alarm shattered the chamber's tension. Lights shifted to a deep crimson, casting the counselors in hues of alarm and fear. The walls around them flickered, displaying a live feed of the station's exterior. The image showed a fleet emerging from the shadows of space. Ships, sleek and predatory, shimmered into existence as their stealth fields deactivated. They moved with calculated precision, their formations perfect, their hulls reflecting no light, as though absorbing the very essence of the void. Nairos rose to his full height, his iridescent patterns flaring like a dying star. "What is the meaning of this? Who dares violate the Council's sanctum?" Marcus stepped forward, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos erupting around him. "That, Chancellor," he said, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade, "would be Earth's fleet." The chamber erupted into chaos. Counselors shouted over one another, their voices clashing in a cacophony of panic and disbelief. Nairos's gaze snapped to Marcus, his patterns darkening into ominous shades. "You lied to us!" he hissed, his voice vibrating with fury. "I never lied," Marcus replied evenly. "You assumed Earth's capabilities were limited. We simply allowed you to continue under that assumption." Outside the station, Earth's fleet moved into position, their engines glowing with an otherworldly brilliance. Ships bristling with weaponry formed an impenetrable perimeter, their movements as precise as clockwork. Marcus knew every maneuver had been calculated, every angle planned. The Council's defenses, once considered impenetrable, flared to life. Energy fields shimmered into existence, massive turrets swiveling to target the intruding fleet. But Earth's forces moved faster. A single ship detached from the formation, its sleek design reminiscent of a predator stalking its prey. It fired. The weapon wasn't a beam or projectile. Instead, space itself seemed to ripple, the fabric of reality bending in unnatural ways. The station's shields flickered, then collapsed, as though the laws of physics themselves had been rewritten. Nairos's voice rang out, desperate and commanding. "Activate all defenses! Neutralize the threat!" But the Council's weapons faltered. Turrets sputtered, their energy beams dispersing harmlessly before they could reach their targets. Marcus allowed himself a faint smile, knowing Earth's technology had rendered their defenses obsolete. "This," Marcus said, his voice carrying an edge of finality, "is just a fraction of what Earth has prepared. A demonstration, if you will. A warning." Nairos's patterns flared brighter, his fury palpable. "You threaten us with war, Ambassador. This is an act of aggression." "No," Marcus replied, his tone unwavering. "This is an act of survival. You gave us no choice." The tremor of another blast echoed through the station, sending vibrations up through Marcus's feet. He could feel the balance of power shifting in the room, the counselors' confidence fracturing like brittle glass. Some of them turned to Marcus with expressions of fear, others with begrudging respect. "Stand down," Marcus continued, his gaze sweeping across the chamber. "Earth does not seek war, but we will not submit. The choice is yours. Negotiate with us as equals, or witness the full extent of what we are capable of." The chamber fell silent, save for the faint hum of the station's failing systems. Marcus stood tall, the weight of Earth's future resting squarely on his shoulders. He could feel the storm building, the collision of wills that would determine the fate of humanity. The trap had sprung, but the endgame was still unwritten. Somewhere in the vastness of space, Earth's hidden forces waited, ready to reveal the next phase of their plan. The question now was whether the Council would fold or fight. The council chamber was a tempest of chaos. Alien voices clashed and overlapped, a cacophony of fear, anger, and disbelief that reverberated through the vast amphitheater like the roar of a stormy sea. Marcus Hall stood unmoving at the podium, his gaze fixed on Chancellor Nyros. The alien leader's iridescent patterns now shimmered erratically, a reflection of his inner turmoil. For all their arrogance, the council had never faced a threat like this. "Enough!" Nyros's voice sliced through the uproar, amplified by the chamber's acoustics. The other councilors fell silent, their gazes turning toward him with a mixture of expectation and unease. "Ambassador Hall, you claim this is a demonstration, but what we see is an act of war." Marcus inclined his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "It is a demonstration," he said, his voice calm yet firm. "But let me be clear. War is not what Earth seeks. However, should you force our hand, we are prepared." Nyros opened his mouth to respond, but his words were drowned out by a sudden, deafening boom. The walls of the chamber trembled, the crystalline structures sending out shimmering ripples of light as vibrations surged through the station. Every face turned toward the screens, which displayed the unfolding battle outside. Earth's fleet had moved with surgical precision. Their ships danced through the void, outmaneuvering the Council's defensive formations with an elegance that belied their deadly intent. Energy beams from the Council's turrets fizzled out mid-flight, their targeting systems scrambled by electromagnetic pulses deployed by Earth's stealth fighters. The alien vessels, once symbols of galactic dominance, now appeared sluggish and vulnerable against the tactical genius of their human counterparts. In the heart of the chaos, Admiral Danvers stood on the command deck of the Resolute, Earth's flagship. The ship's interior was a blend of advanced technology and utilitarian design, every surface glowing softly with the blue-green hues of augmented displays. Danvers's sharp eyes scanned the holographic battlefield projected before him, his voice steady as he issued orders. "Deploy the second wave of interceptors," he commanded, his tone clipped but unshaken. "Target their propulsion systems and leave their weapons offline. We want them immobilized, not annihilated." Around him, officers moved with military precision, their movements synchronized like the gears of a well-oiled machine. The faint hum of engines vibrated through the deck, accompanied by the metallic scent of heated circuitry and the faint ozone tang of the shield generators. Danvers clenched his jaw, his mind racing through contingencies. Every maneuver, every attack had been planned down to the millisecond. Earth's strength wasn't just in its technology, it was in its discipline, its ability to adapt and exploit weaknesses. Back on the Council station, Marcus watched as the screens displayed one of Earth's most ingenious weapons: gravity disruptors. Small, sleek drones deployed by Earth's fleet emitted controlled bursts of gravitational energy, creating localized distortions that sent enemy ships spiraling out of formation. The Council's vessels collided with one another in their confusion, their pilots unprepared for such a precise and unconventional tactic. "What is this technology?" one of the councilors demanded, their voice trembling with shock. "Our scans showed nothing of this kind." Marcus turned toward the councilor, his voice calm but edged with steel. "It's called preparation. Decades of observation, innovation, and discipline. While you dismissed Earth as primitive, we were learning, building, and preparing for this moment." Nyros slammed a hand against the arm of his throne, his iridescent patterns flaring. "Enough of your boasting. This ends now." He gestured sharply to a nearby technician. "Activate the station's core defenses. Wipe them out." The technician hesitated, their amphibian features glistening with sweat. "Chancellor, the defenses are compromised. Their systems have been neutralized by an unknown interference." The chamber fell into a stunned silence, broken only by the faint hum of the screens. Marcus allowed himself a small, grim smile. He knew exactly what the interference was: Earth's guardian AI. The decentralized network of artificial intelligence, modeled after the cooperative behavior of ant colonies, had infiltrated the Council's systems long before the first shot was fired. Quietly, invisibly, it had dismantled their defenses from within. Meanwhile, on Earth, General Carrick stood in the subterranean command center beneath the Pacific Ocean. The room was a hive of activity, the air thick with the scent of coffee and sweat, as officers coordinated the planetary defenses. Massive holographic displays showed live feeds of the battle in space, their surfaces flickering with streams of data. Carrick's voice cut through the din like a whip. "Activate the orbital countermeasures. I want targeting locks on every Council fleet within range. If they so much as twitch toward Earth, I want them neutralized." "Yes, sir," replied Captain Lyle, his fingers flying across a console. "Orbital platforms are powering up. First wave of missiles armed and ready." Carrick nodded, his eyes narrowing as he studied the holograms. The orbital platforms, disguised as weather satellites for decades, were Earth's last line of defense. Each one carried enough firepower to dismantle an entire fleet, but Carrick knew they were a deterrent, not a solution. His real focus was on the timing, ensuring every move served to reinforce the illusion that Earth was still holding back. The Council's forces, though reeling, weren't completely broken. A cluster of their ships regrouped near the edge of the battlefield, their massive forms bristling with weaponry. Marcus watched on the chamber screens as the alien vessels launched a volley of plasma projectiles toward Earth's fleet. But Earth was ready. The Resolute deployed its countermeasure drones, which created shimmering energy shields that absorbed the plasma blasts like water, evaporating against a hot surface. The holographic displays on the Council station showed the energy dissipate harmlessly, leaving the human ships untouched. "Enough," Marcus said, his voice cutting through the tension in the chamber. "Chancellor Nyros, you're not just losing this battle. You've already lost. Continuing this fight will only result in unnecessary casualties." Nyros's gaze burned with fury, his patterns darkening into hues of anger and desperation. "You think this proves anything? You think your fleet can stand against the full might of the Council?" Marcus stepped closer to the podium, his voice unwavering. "This isn't about fleets or might, Chancellor. It's about strategy, precision, and resolve. Earth's goal has never been conquest. It's survival, cooperation. But if forced, we will defend ourselves." Another tremor rocked the station, this one stronger than the last. On the screens, Earth's fleet had moved into a defensive formation, surrounding the station in a calculated show of dominance. The Council's forces were in disarray, their ships scattered and their command structure fractured. Marcus let the moment hang, the weight of it pressing down on the chamber like a thundercloud about to break. He could see the doubt creeping into the Councilors' expressions, their once arrogant gazes now tinged with fear and uncertainty. The balance of power had shifted, but the war wasn't over. Not yet. Somewhere in the vast expanse of space, Earth's next move was already in motion, its hidden capabilities poised to reveal themselves. Marcus knew the Council would fight to regain control, but he also knew they were unprepared for what was coming next. The game was far from over, and Earth's hand was only just beginning to be played. The chamber was a cauldron of tension, its occupants caught between disbelief and despair as the battle outside the station raged on. The once dominant Galactic Council, the self-proclaimed shepherds of interstellar order, now watched their carefully constructed supremacy crumble like glass under a hammer. Marcus Hall stood in the center of the storm, calm and unyielding, his presence as unshakable as the foundation Earth had built for this moment. On the massive screens surrounding the chamber, Earth's fleet moved with the precision of a predator closing in on its prey. Ships shimmered in and out of visibility, their quantum stealth technology making them phantoms in the void. The Council's fleet, though vast and powerful, was no match for the surgical tactics Earth had deployed. Alien vessels drifted aimlessly, their propulsion systems neutralized, while others burned silently in the vacuum of space. "You still think this is a demonstration?" Chancellor Nyros's voice broke the silence, sharp and venomous. His iridescent patterns now pulsed with chaotic, discordant colors, a reflection of his crumbling control. "This is annihilation." Marcus turned toward him, his expression carved from stone. "If this were annihilation, your station would already be dust. your fleets would be debris scattered across the galaxy. This, Chancellor, is restraint." Nyros slammed a clawed hand against the arm of his throne, the sound reverberating through the chamber like a gunshot. "You presume to lecture us on restraint? Your species, which has known nothing but war and destruction, dares to claim the moral high ground?" Marcus's voice was cold steel. "We learned restraint because we had no choice, because every war we fought, every loss we endured, taught us the price of survival. You dismissed us as primitive, violent, and insignificant. But we turned those battles into lessons, that desperation into innovation. What you see now is the culmination of centuries of struggle." The counselors murmured among themselves, their voices a mix of awe and fear. On the screens, the battle continued to unfold, but the tide had decisively turned. Earth's fleet now encircled the station completely, their ships forming an impenetrable web. The Council's forces were routed, their command structure shattered, and their arrogance reduced to ashes. "Enough of your words," Nero spat, rising from his throne. His towering form cast a long shadow over the chamber, but the authority he once wielded now felt hollow. "You think your fleeting victories give you the right to dictate terms? The Council has ruled this galaxy for millennia. We will not be brought to our knees by a backwater species that stumbled into the stars." Marcus stepped forward, his footsteps echoing through the chamber like the toll of a bell, his gaze locked with Nyros's, unflinching and unyielding. "You call us a backwater species," he said, his voice low and steady. "You ridicule us for the wars we fought, the mistakes we made. But those mistakes are what forged us. They taught us how to adapt, how to innovate, how to endure." He gestured to the screens where Earth's fleet stood as a testament to that resilience. "What you see here is the product of humanity's greatest strength, our ability to learn, to grow, and to turn adversity into opportunity. You underestimated us because you saw only our past. But our past is what made us stronger." The chamber fell silent, the weight of Marcus's words pressing down on every being present. Even Neros, for all his bluster, seemed momentarily subdued. But Marcus wasn't finished. "You think this battle is the endgame," he said, his voice rising with quiet intensity. "But you're wrong. This is just the beginning." He raised his hand, and the screens shifted once more. The images now displayed were not of the battle, but of council-controlled worlds, each one orbiting peacefully in the void. But something was different. Massive structures, hidden until now, began to decloak above each planet. They were Earth's defense platforms, monolithic constructs bristling with weaponry and shielded by technology far beyond anything the Council could comprehend. Gasps and cries of alarm erupted from the counselors. Nyros's iridescent patterns flared with panic. "What? What is this?" Marcus's tone was unrelenting. "While you watched us, we watched you. For decades, Earth has been preparing for the day someone would try to subjugate us. These platforms are not weapons of conquest. They are guardians placed to ensure that no one, not even the Council, can threaten us again." Neros's claws gripped the edge of his throne, his voice a rasp of desperation. "You've surrounded our worlds. You've turned this galaxy into your prison." Marcus's gaze was ice. "No, Chancellor. We've turned it into our home." The room fell deathly silent. Even the faint hum of the station's system seemed muted, as if the universe itself were holding its breath. Marcus stepped forward once more, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of struggle and triumph. "This isn't about domination," he said. "It's about survival. It's about ensuring that humanity has a place among the stars, not as a subject, but as an equal. You gave us no choice but to show you what we're capable of, but now the choice is yours." He turned to the counselors, his gaze sweeping across the chamber. "You can continue to see us as a threat, and this galaxy will descend into chaos. Or you can recognize us as partners, and together we can build something greater, a true alliance, where every species contributes to the whole." Nyros's voice was a whisper, barely audible. "And if we refuse?" Marcus's expression softened, though his resolve did not waver. "Then we'll defend ourselves. But you won't like what that looks like." The counselors exchanged glances, their expressions a mixture of fear, respect, and reluctant admiration. The balance of power had shifted irreversibly, and they all knew it. One by one they nodded, their acceptance silent but unmistakable. Nairos sank back into his throne, his patterns dimming into muted shades. He looked at Marcus with something that bordered on grudging respect. "Very well, Ambassador Hall. You have our attention. What are your terms?" Marcus allowed himself a small, almost imperceptible smile. "Equality, cooperation, and the recognition that humanity is no longer the species you once dismissed." The Chancellor nodded slowly, his head bowing just enough to signal a concession. It was a moment that would be etched into the annals of galactic history, the day Earth not only survived but redefined its place in the cosmos. As the chamber erupted into discussions of peace and alliance, Marcus stepped back, his gaze turning to the screens. Outside, Earth's fleet remained poised, a silent reminder of the price of underestimation. Humanity had claimed its place among the stars, not through conquest but through sheer determination, ingenuity, and the unyielding will to survive. In the vastness of space, the final echoes of the battle faded, leaving only the promise of what lay ahead. And as Marcus Hall walked out of the chamber, his footsteps steady and his head held high, he knew one thing for certain. Earth had shocked the galaxy, and the galaxy would never be the same.